Welcome back. Well, at the heart of the problem is a divided city. Jerusalem remains a key issue in peace negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. That is because both sides claim the city as their own. It is home for some of the holiest sites for the three major monotheistic religions in the world. But soon after its occupation of East Jerusalem in 1967, Israel expanded its municipal boundaries. Then in 1980, it was officially annexed. Palestinians say the ancient city has been subject to a systematic diluting of its Arab identity. Israel has been working to separate East Jerusalem from its West Bank Arab surroundings. After the 1993 Oslo Accords, Israel erected roadblocks and imposed more restrictions on Palestinians in the city. Despite Israeli promises to stop settlement building, successive governments accelerated building of Jewish homes inside the old city. Har Homa and Gilo are two examples where more than 6,000 settlers are living. Now there are around 200,000 Israeli settlers living in East Jerusalem settlements, surrounding some 220,000 Palestinians in the city. Meanwhile, Palestinians are routinely denied planning permits, dozens of their homes are demolished, and they still have to pay heavy taxes if they wish to continue to live there. Well, still with us are our guests, Huda Al-Imam, Arya King and Danny Seideman. Danny Seideman, with all of this in mind, with all of these facts on the ground, it makes it difficult to envisage a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital anytime soon.
I believe that is still possible. Jerusalem is not going to be a divided city. It already is. Israelis and Palestinians lead separate lives, parallel lives. But the events of the recent weekend are a dry run of the issues that need be addressed in order to arrive at a political resolution of this conflict. Look at the old city. You have three mutually incompatible religious narratives: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Two mutually incompatible national narratives, all living in the same sacred and secular space. That's what makes Jerusalem the remarkable city it is. Sit any Friday afternoon on the corner of Al-Wad Street and St. Stephen's Road, coming down from Damascus Gate. You will see thousands of Muslim worshippers going to Haram al-Sharif, the Temple Mount, to pray. You'll see thousands of Jewish worshippers going to the Western Wall. Christians at the third station of the cross. That's what makes Jerusalem, Jerusalem. Unfortunately, there are trends afoot that aspire to stamp out this multi-dimensional character of Jerusalem, and that must be thwarted. We should be
like
celebrating and embracing the diversity of Jerusalem.
Are voices like Arya King's exacerbating the problem?
I believe that Arya King is very mistaken and is causing grave harm to national interests in Israel by speaking out and implementing an exclusionary Jewish vision. Jerusalem is my capital. It's the cradle of my civilization, but it is also the cradle of my colleague Huda Imam's civilization and of my Christian colleagues. And that is what we should be embracing and celebrating, and not the establishment of some kind of ersatz biblical Jewish hegemony over the city that undermines the cultural and religious integrity of the city and destabilizes the city, that will turn the city into a hemorrhaging interface between Islam, the Arab world, and the West.
Okay, Arya King, how would you like to respond to that? It sounds like a fair proposition from Danny Seideman. Include everybody. Don't just claim it for yourself.
Please, how much percentage of the Israeli people?
Let's give Arya King a chance to answer.
I will answer in a very short way to Danny. I don't have any problem with Arabs, if they are Christians or Muslims, to live in Yerushalayim. The only people that have problem with other population are the Muslims, are the Arabs. They don't want to see the Jews in Eretz Israel, in Israel. Don't get mistake. I don't have any problem. More than that, according to my religion, we are accepting the Muslims, the Christians, any other religion to stay here in Yerushalayim and to work their God, whoever it will be. We don't have any problem with that. Now, what Danny Seideman is describing about the old city at every Friday evening, I am part of it. My neighbors are Arabs, more Arabs than Jews.
Okay.
And I don't have any problems with my neighbors. And they don't have any problems with me.
Okay, if we could give Huda Al-Imam a chance to respond, please.
Yes, it sounds very remarkable the way Danny Zeidman is describing Jerusalem with what's going on with the house demolitions in Silwan, Jabal al-Mukabbir, At-Tur, the evacuation of people from their homes in Sheikh Jarrah. Today, as we are talking, there were 8 people from my friends, the Jerusalem Coalition, who were at the tent of Al-Kurd, the Solidarity tent in Sheikh Jarrah. They were all arrested and very much harassed before they were arrested. I myself, because I was walking with young orphans on the Mother's Day, the 21st of March, that is the day before yesterday, in the Old City, going to my office to offer them breakfast, I was arrested by the Israeli police. So what's that wonderful image these 2 people are giving you and the audience? With all due respect, Danny Zeidman wishes perhaps that Jerusalem stays a multicultural one. And Arya King says, it sounds we don't have any problems with the Arab Muslims. No, of course Israel has a problem. And 90% of the Israeli people have a problem with the Palestinians. We as Arabs, historically, it's very well known that we have always had tolerance and we have invited with generosity the Jewish people to be in Jerusalem.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into the topography and the historic proof and evidence who's there before and who's there next.
Never tolerated the
I
Jews.
I would like to say that this Israeli policy of aggression, which is being intensified in Jerusalem,
Muslim country. I don't know where you are coming with this idea.
It's not acceptable. And there has to be a very clear program of resistance.
What you are talking about.
Let me come in there. Let me come in there. Arya King, let's leave the holy books out of this and talk about international law for a second. You campaign for settlements that are illegal according to international law, which are condemned by the entire world except you. How do you justify the unjustifiable?
Excuse me, sir, but it's not against any law, not in international law, because if it was illegal, don't worry. I believe some people were suing me all over the world, but it's illegal. There is no problem with that. Let's face it. And let's face another thing, very, very important thing. And this is that Jerusalem was never mentioned everywhere. If there is a culture to Jerusalem, if there is a culture mentioned somewhere, you will not find it in any Muslim culture. Now, I would quote Ahmed Shukri, the first chairman of the PLO. Ahmed Shukri, when he was the ambassador of the Arab League in the United Nations, at 1961, he said that there is nothing that is called Palestinian. We are part of the great Syria. So maybe talk about the culture of the Syrians in Jerusalem. Let's admit it.
Okay. Let's go to
Mr.
going back.
King,
let's get a response from Huda Response from Huda Al-Imam.
All the power and the nuclear weapons that you have, you are unable to have your own culture. You may have it, maybe if you believe in the values of humanity, in the values of equality and justice. But as long as the Zionist movement is being every day executed on the ground, practiced to get rid of the Palestinians from their own land, then you will never have a culture. And this is why you feel so weak, so insecure, and so desperate about us Palestinians celebrating
I want a final thought from Danny Zeidman.
and Jerusalem being the Arab capital, cultural capital for 2009.
Okay, I want a final thought from Danny Zeidman. Danny, Huda was also critical of you. She says you're too much of an idealist.
I apologize for being an idealist. I've spent the better part of the last 20 years combating settlement activities and activities that try and deprive Huda and my Palestinian friends of their national identity. I live in my nation's capital, Jerusalem. The Palestinians live in occupied East Jerusalem. I am not liberated because the world does not recognize my capital. My liberation will only come about when Huda is liberated and lives in Al-Quds, the capital of Palestine. Her liberation and my liberation are intertwined. And instead of doing one-upsmanship and trying to score points against one another, we should, as we do, engage in common cause to bring about a political resolution of the bitter conflict between ourselves and the Palestinians. And that conflict ends in Jerusalem when Huda and the residents of East Jerusalem live in a Palestinian state with its capital Al-Quds. That will be my liberation as a Jew, Israeli, and yes, Huda, as a Zionist.
Okay, very apt final thought. Huda, Arya, and Danny, thank you very much. We have reached the end of the discussion, unfortunately. I'm very sorry. We could go on for ages. Thank you very much to all three of you. I'm going to have to stop you all because it's the end of the program. And thank you so much, the viewer, for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your comments and your suggestions. You can email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye-bye for now.